Good evening, everyone. I will be talking about physics guided neural networks. This is part of my seminar presentation for the course Machine Learning in Earth System Sciences. I'm Arjun Sharma. Let's get started. So, first, I will be going over what are neural networks, and then I will gradually introduce the idea of how is the application of physics and the laws of physics into neural networks possible, and in what field and in what applications have neural network been used, basically in the field of physics. So we will be looking over at some of the applications, and I have put in lucid explanations which will help us understand that how something which is uh, to be put simply a series of mathematical functions applied one after the other, how can it aid us to act as with something which solves a physics problem posed to it. So first of all, let's simply begin with what are artificial neural networks, why are they known in neural networks, what actually happens inside a neural network, what kind of answers can it give us, all those sort of things. So, what are neural networks? Capabilities, architectures, and implementation of artificial neural networks. So, a neural network is a computational tool whose operation is loosely modeled on that of the human brain. The network typically consists of multiple layers of artificial neurons which carry out calculations. So, a neuron is a single unit in a neural network, and a neural network may contain thousands or hundreds of neurons which will be connected in a specific configuration. This configuration will also affect the result, and the number of neurons will also affect the result. The connection between neurons are weighted, and those weights, which can number into the millions and billions, form the tunable parameters of the network. The beauty of the neural network lies in the fact that they don't need to be programmed to solve a task. So what does this line mean is that for if I want to, for example, something which neural networks are being used essentially for these days, something such as a problem of image classification. So let's say I have to feed in an image and I want my neural network to tell me whether it's an image of my cat or my dog. Then my neural network, because it's like I do not program it, I cannot tell it that okay, to classify a dog or cat, you look for the color of the coat, or to classify a dog or cat, you look at the features of the face. I do not need to tell all of this. All I need to do is set up a neural network architecture. That is one. So give enough number of artificial neurons so that my neural network can learn, and I stress on the word learn, and then give it sufficient data which can work, so the neural network can work a number of times. So all these features that I just talked about, this is how a human brain works. So when we, for example, see a cat, we know that the cat will have a smaller structure than the dog. Its fur will have different color. Its face will look different. Some dogs do not have tail. Cats usually have tails. All these sort of things. These are we remember these things, and these are the features that we humans use to differentiate between two things. A neural network does not know these, but what it does is it learns. That is why we say it is loosely modeled on that of the human brain. So the mathematical functions and the artificial neurons that are connected to each other, they enable the neural network to learn all of these features. And although its end result is just a simple output, maybe in the form of probability, if I've programmed it that way, that whether it is a cat or dog, inside the neural network has in fact through its various neurons learned these kind of features, and then that is what it classifies the image on. So that is what we mean when we say that the beauty of the neural network lies in the fact that they don't need to be programmed to solve a task. So it learns on its own. I just need to provide an input and an output. That this is mapped to this. If sufficient examples of this type are provided, for example, if I provide 10,000 mappings that this is a cat image, dog image, cat image, dog image, such examples, I provide a sufficient number of them, 10,000, 20,000. Then my neural network will learn well, and it will answer my question on a new input very well. So as I said, they learn by example, adjusting their parameters such that the solutions, their output improve over time. The trained network can match other pictures to the same person without the user having to provide detailed information about the specific characteristics of the person's face, because the neural network will itself learn these characteristics. We only need to provide it an input mapped to an output. So how what is happening inside that is enabling these sort of things to happen? So a neural network, artificial neuron, when I say AN, I refer to one single neuron. So it receives a set of input signals from the environment. So this may be a single vector which is n-dimensional, this which is usually the case, but there are some type of neural networks, something known as convolutional neural networks, that can take multidimensional arrays as input also. A weight is associated with each input signal. So basically, each neuron applies some function and some weight to every input it gets. If the weight is positive, then the signal is excited. Otherwise, the signal is inhibited. So this is all what kind of mathematical operation are we doing on the input at each neuron. We may be, for example, doing something as trivial as x plus 2. So at every neuron, I get x of I, and I am simply passing on xi plus 2 to the next layer. Or I may be doing something as complex as the sigmoid activation. There are various type of things possible. I may be passing on the absolute value of x, all these things. So this is what is meant by the weight. So it assigns a weight to every input it gets. So the net signal then can be calculated as the sum of all the input signals. So if a neuron is doing a summation of all the input it receives, then this is the kind of result each neuron gives. It may also do a product. These are all the various mathematical things each which can happen at each neuron. So the product unit has a higher information capacity than the summation unit, as it allows higher order combination of inputs. We can see that this the product term, this has a higher dimension, so that is why it essentially contains more information. The output signal is calculated using a function called an activation function, as I said, which depends on the value of the net signal and the threshold value theta called bias. For a more compact treatment, the bias can be considered as an additional input signal. So to simplify or to understand how a neural network works, the concept of bias is usually taken as an extra input. So an extra input xi of x of I plus 1 is labeled as -1, and it is said that this is the bias input term. So it bias can be loosely said that it represents some kind of additional information in the data which we do not make much sense of, but we have to accommodate for it for better results. So bias is usually understood as some extra input. Then, as I said, there are different type of activation functions possible. Some simple choices are linear functions, step functions. More complicated one may be sigmoid functions or Gaussian functions. So these are all chosen according to the need and performance required from the neural network. So now, as I said, one neuron in essentially all it does is apply some mathematical function to the input and then pass it on to something forward. So if there's only one neuron, or even if there are some neurons on in the same layer, so at the same level, so I do not think that I will receive a lot of meaningful input from a single layer and even less from a single neuron. So that is why neural networks consist of a series of layers, and those layers consist of various number of neurons. So one way to organize the artificial neural networks is in layers called multi-layer artificial neural networks. This type of ANN which simply propagates the input through the all layers. So layer 1 activation happens, passes on to layer 2, activation happens, passes on to layer 3. This sort of mechanism is called a feed-forward multi-layer ANN. The input layer of a feed-forward ANN can be extended into a layer of functional units as a means of implementing activation function for the input layer. Such a version of an ANN is called a functional link ANN. A different class of ANNs can be obtained by introducing a feedback connection in the propagation of the signal through the layers. Such networks are called recurrent ANNs. The recurrent ANNs have an advantage of being able to learn temporal characteristic of the datasets to which they are exposed. So these are different kind of architectures of a neural networks which are chosen as per the need. So now we come to the learning process, which is a very important part. So how does the neural network learn? And this is dependent on what kind of input and output have we provided. So supervised learning, which is one of the common types of training and learning of a neural network. So ANN is presented with a training data set which contains the input vectors, and it is presented with a corresponding output data set. The weights of the ANN are adjusted iteratively by various algorithms. It may use gradient descent, it may use adaptive gradient descent, all these sort of things. So these will optimize the weights at each neuron such that the output the neural network is producing is closest to the actual output. In unsupervised learning, the data set which is the output, we do not have any output labels. So we do not have any class classification, we do not have any number which is the output, so we just have the input. So in these sort of tasks, what we're usually looking for is either patterns or clusters. These are the problems which come under unsupervised learning. So this type of learning will allow the neural network to find patterns or give us groups and clusters of data. The other type is reinforcement learning. So, in which the ANN is presented in a data set which contains only the input vectors. The weights of the ANN are adjusted such that those parts of the ANN which have a good performance, which will be measured on some criteria, are rewarded while the other parts are penalized. So, these are broadly the three ways ANN might learn. So now that we have a brief idea of how neural networks work, we can move on to physics guided neural networks. What kind of speciality is this? How can we apply physics, and just what are the applications that have been achieved till now? I will try to cover some of them. So the motivation behind physics guided neural network. So it is very understand. So till now, in our previous initial 5 to 6 slides, we have been looking at a neural network as something which can relate data to data. So input data, it relates it to output data and optimizes its result and gives me the best result it can by training iteratively. Now, the new idea is this, that data is the only guide which we use to which is our basically data is the only guide which we use while looking for a solution. So what if we could use our knowledge of the world? For example, we could use physical laws together with data to aid the neural network in finding the best solution. So this analogy sounds very interesting, and this is what Kapatne have explained in their paper, Physics Guided Neural Networks and Application in Lake Temperature Modeling. I will explain why this idea is crucial, and I will also try to describe what have they done as part of their research by summarizing their paper, because I think it is a very important and nothing less of a milestone in this field. So they present two approaches to guide a neural network's code with physics. One is that we calculate some additional features by feature engineering based on some physics laws, and we pass them to the network, and the model then takes it as any other data. But instead of just passing some sort of raw data, we do feature engineering and we pass specific features, and these feature engineering is obviously done keeping some physics law in mind of whatever application we are doing. And or the second way can be that we add a physical inconsistency term to the loss. So whenever the neural network outputs something that is physically not possible, or that does not follow the law of physics, or for example, we are finding out some sort of wavelength. So we're doing a regression task using a neural network, and we're predicting some sort of wavelength. So this function will penalize the neural network for its prediction of wavelength as far as it is from what is calculated from a physics law. So if it is very close to what is predicted by the physics law, then it is fine. Otherwise, the error physical inconsistency function, as large as this loss difference, it will penalize the model. The first approach, feature engineering, is extensively used in machine learning. The second approach, however, is compelling, very much like adding a regularization term to punish overfitting, because we regularly encounter the problem of overfitting. And so this approach is not very common. Like, this is usually not how we deal with overfitting. And they add a physical inconsistency term to the loss function. So basically, if your result is not very well understood by physics, it does not go well with physics laws, then simply discard your result. Hence, with this new, we do not discard the result, we penalize the neural network. So hence, with this new term, the optimization algorithm should also take care of minimizing physically inconsistent result. It should take care that the results that my neural network outputs must be well defined by the laws of physics, and they must be as close to results from physical laws as possible. There are two main advantages which PGNNs can provide. Achieving generalization. Since physics models generally do not depend on data, they might perform well on unseen data even from a different distribution. So what this means is that physical laws are usually not dependent on what kind of data I input. They So in this sense, because neural networks are initially very data dependent, so as we know, the accuracy or the kind of error we are getting on training may be very different from what we get on validation. So this problem may be actually solved by integrating physics laws, as we say. And machine learning problems are sometimes referred to as black box model, because we do not sometimes really understand fully the algorithm, or each layer of the neural network, what is it doing, but it gets us sufficient results. So application of physical laws and these two approaches, feature engineering and penalizing for physically inconsistent results, may also help solve an application example of the two approaches that we have just discussed, that are penalizing the model of for predicting physically inconsistent solutions and feature engineering. So the application we will be looking about, that was talked about in the paper, is lake temperature modeling. So in the paper, lake temperature modeling is given as an example to demonstrate the effectiveness of the proposed PGNNs. So water temperature controls the growth, survival, and reproduction of biological species. So this is a very important problem. And of course, we know that there will be some sort of gradient in the water temperature. It will be dependent on the kind of composition the water temperature have. It will be a function of depth of a lake and for time, etc. and etc. So this is a very well suited problem because it encompasses a number of physical quantities. So this is what we will be demonstrating our proposed PGNN on. So the first approach, as we said, is feature engineering. So we use a model called general lake model to generate some new features and feed them into the neural network. So obviously this GLM function, or it may encompass some various functions. It will be physics based, and so it will take care of various physical effects such as evaporation of water, heating of the lake due to radiation from the sun, or the surrounding environment around the lake, the composition of the lake, things like that. The second thing which we'll be doing is the loss function modification. So the loss function of a neural network, as we discussed earlier, seeks to minimize the difference. So basically the loss function refers to the difference between the predicted and the actual value, and the training of the neural network seeks to minimize this difference. We will tweak this, and we will say that, for example, that we will define the physical inconsistency term, the term which we want to penalize the algorithm if it gives a physically inconsistent result. So we know that denser water sinks. So the relationship between water temperature and its density is also known. This is a physically established law. So if my neural network suddenly suggests that denser water should not sink, or denser water should be at the top, then I know that is a problem. So hence prediction should follow the fact that the deeper the point, the higher should be the predicted density. As I said, denser water cannot exist at the top of the lake. If for a pair of points, the model predicts higher density for a point which is located at a higher point in the lake, by higher I mean a point which is closer to the surface, then the algorithm must be penalized. Now it is possible to incorporate this idea into the loss function. So as I said, we would like to punish if rho A is greater than rho B, and so here, for a large inconsistency, we also say that the punishment should be higher. So we must also not give a uniform punishment for dissimilar inconsistencies. So this can be done easily by adding the value of the function max rho a minus rho b to the loss function. So if rho a is greater than rho b, that is inconsistency, a is a point higher than b and it is having a higher density, the function will give a positive value. This will increase the value of the loss function. And so this basically flags as a greater loss in the function, in the loss function that we are trying to optimize. Otherwise, it will give 0, leaving the loss function as it is. So basically, the flag was not raised that there was no physically inconsistent result. So at this point, two modifications are necessary to the function in order to use it properly. What is important is the average inconsistency of all the pairs, not one single pair, because this may, not take care of outliers, or it may not be able to capture the inconsistency well. Therefore, it is possible to sum the max of rho a minus rho b for all the points where an inconsistency occurs. Otherwise, it will be 0, and then divide by the number of points. It is also critical to control the relative importance of minimizing physical inconsistency. What I mean by this is we need to establish a value system so as to which component of our loss function are we giving more value to. Do we give more value to minimizing the physical inconsistency and forget the actual loss function itself? So what that will mean is that our neural network does not give actual outputs that are to be expected, that are closer to the output values we have provided it, and the loss function is merely fixing the physical inconsistency term. So that must also should not be happening. This we can fix by something like a hyperparameter. We can multiply some lambda with the physical inconsistency terms, and that lambda can control the effectiveness and the value of how much our loss function is valuing the physical inconsistency terms with respect to the original loss function, which may simply be a mean squared error between prediction and actual. So yes, as I said, we may use some sort of a lambda phi, which is our hyperparameter, into the number of pairs, into the summation of the physical inconsistency error. So the paper proposed 4 models. These are the GLM, which is a basic mathematical general lake model, which may use physical laws. NN, which is a generic neural network not incorporating any ideas. PGNN0 was the neural network with feature engineering. Result of GLM are fed into NN. And PGNN is feature engineering and also with the modified loss functions. The two metrics for evaluation would be RMSE, which is the root mean squared error used frequently in neural network performance evaluation, and physical inconsistency, fraction of time steps where the model makes physically inconsistent predictions. This is this is a result where we see the RMSE and the physical inconsistency. So we can see very well that the PGNN0 gives a fairly less RMSE as compared to a standard neural network, and also as compared to the general physics model that was just a set of mathematical rules. But what is to be seen very sharply is that the PGNN0, although it has a similar RMSE to PGNN, there is a stark difference between the physical inconsistency, and that happens because PGNN0, which is simply based on feature engineering, so it incorporates the physics laws, and that is why it has a better performance than a simple neural network in terms of RMSE. But PGNN also seeks to minimize the physical inconsistency problem, and hence its performance is similar to the model PHY with respect to physical inconsistency, because it does not provide physically inconsistent solutions, and its performance with respect to RMSE is similar to PGNN0 because it also uses feature engineering. So it gets the best of both worlds, and hence the physical inconsistency and the RMSE are both minimized. So this is again the result sheet. So as we can see, PGNN performs well in both regards. Lessons are error, which can be thought of as the original loss function a neural network must optimize, and also minimizes physical inconsistency. So to sum things up, These results show that the new type of algorithm, PGNN, is very promising to provide accurate and physically consistent results. Moreover, incorporating our knowledge of the world into the loss function provides an elegant way to improve the generalization performance of a machine learning model. This seemingly simple idea has the potential to fundamentally improve the way we conduct machine learning and scientific research. Because, as I said, now data is not the primary basis, is not the only, it may still be the primary, but it's not the only basis of which our neural network can learn. We can actually incorporate physical laws and our knowledge about the problem we have posed into the data, into the neural network, and the paper which we just discussed shows us two ways of doing that. We come to another application of neural networks in physics. This time we're talking about high energy physics. We'll not be spending too much time as we've already taken a lot of time. Artificial neural networks had a late start in the field of high energy physics. They were only implemented some 40 years after their discovery. During the last couple of years, ANN have become routinely used in experiments such as BAPR, CDF, and D0. In terms of type of ANNs, the most common ones have been the feed-forward multi-layer with backpropagation error. So that is the typical ANN that we also use. The first application, however, made use of a recurrent ANN. So other type of ANNs remain almost unexplored, and we hope that in the coming years, with more research being put in this field, we will hope to see even more promising results in the field of high energy physics being solved by neural networks as more and more neural network architectures are implemented. This is another slide about the implementation of neural networks in high energy physics. So the LHC experiment is one experiment in which neural networks have provided a lot of results, and it is being worked upon with various type of neural networks. So now we come to another important research. This is done by the team at Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, ETH, in Zurich. So let's focus on the second point here. As we said, that while neural networks can learn to solve enormously diverse tasks, the inner workings of these models are often a black box. So although we may know what kind of weights are being implemented and what kind of mathematical function is being done at each neuron, but often we do not have so much clarity so as to what is happening at each layer, and cumulatively which all mathematical functions were representative. Even if we know, it is very difficult to make sense of all that is happening. This is very problematic for a physics implementation, because when a researcher or when any lab, for example, they input some kind of results and they get some output, then they expect it to have some relevance and understanding about what the neural network did. So this is where this new research comes in, and this is why it is very important to talk about this. So to study the neural network, the team asked SciNet. SciNet refers to the artificial neural network to solve different physics problems in the field of astronomy. So for this problem, SciNet was given the angular coordinates of Mars and the Sun, which were measured from the Earth with respect to some fixed stars. The neural network was then asked to predict something. It was asked to predict the future positions of the celestial bodies. After the training process, the team analyzed what kind of weights the neural networks finally had after learning, and they went tried to understand that how the neural network was working, what kind of working it had done on the data. So they found that after it had performed a coordinate transformation, and it was actually changing the angle of Mars such that the distance was measured from the sun and not the earth, which we had originally inputted. So it had changed from a geocentric to a heliocentric worldview, so without being explicitly told to do so. What that tells is that while the learning and training of a neural network, it actually changed and did something which holds physical importance, which could be made sense by astronomers and scientists. So this work therefore makes a step towards using machine learning models as a source of inspiration in science, because now, for example, we seek to use SciNet in studying rotation curves of galaxies, or we seek to use SciNet in rotation in probably studying quantum physics. Then SciNet will perform some operations during its training. It will obviously seek to optimize its output. But by analyzing the weights and the parameters at the end of learning, if scientists can make sense of physical processes being applied, of transformations, of physical laws actually being applied by the model from the data itself without explicitly being told to do so. It was not told that there exists a geocentric and a heliocentric model. Cyanide did that on its own by learning from the data. So this will lead to new conceptual understanding in problems which are not yet solved, and even those which have been, it will lead to greater avenues of physics research. In conclusion, so neural networks can prove to be a great asset in the field of physics, its research and its applications. Two such directions could be investigation of more complex type of neural networks and the investigation of unsupervised neural networks. Because this is a relatively new field, we do not see a lot of implementation of neural networks in solving physics problems and in physics research. We hope that neural networks are implemented much more and in various architectures, and as we said, also in the unsupervised format. All this will lead to a lot of innovation in the field of physics. Thank you.